We're back. We're back. I'm Chris Drew from Medicine Sports. That's my guy, Ron. Ron, it is a bye week, but we still got plenty to talk about. But before we get into that plenty to talk about, I want to ask, how are you doing, my guy?
Pretty good. The Buckeyes are 2-0 heading into a bye week, and we get a break this weekend. Everybody's complaining about the bye week, and I'm like, you don't do 11 shows a week. So the bye week is more than needed by us content creators. So I'm super excited, but there's still plenty to talk about. That's why we're here again, even though the Buckeyes do not play this Saturday.
Yeah, man. I don't know if we still should come on here and ourselves, but I will. Obviously, got my guy Ron from Best Damn Media on a fine Wednesday. I feel like as staples here, we get to really dig into our deepest Ohio State thoughts. And for bye weeks, that tends to be kind of the only thing we have, because everything on a bye week is a hypothetical. It's a who we're watching, what we're curious about, what we want to see fixed, who are the biggest threats in the Big Ten is what we got today. So in the chat, obviously, let me know what you guys think, and then we'll get there when we get there. But right now, let's do a quick, what do we call, a couple minute season recap, even though it's only been 2 weeks. How's that sound, Ron?
Let's get right into it.
All right, man. So far, it's only been 2 games, but I feel like we've gathered a lot of information in 2 games, a lot of stuff from camp that's been confirmed to us, a lot of stuff that's rumors that's been confirmed to us, and some stuff that we haven't quite seen on the field. I'm curious, before we get into this whole breakdown, who is, to you, is the best player on defense?
On defense, it's going to be a little bit of a surprise, and we've talked about this guy a good bit here on Bleacher Report, a guy that we thought might not see the field that much, and we had our fingers crossed like, hey, do we think this guy is going to get some playing time? Can he push for some minutes? Are they going to make sure they develop him in garbage time? And we had a graphic for this guy last week. Arvell Reese is my defensive MVP, just because all of the starters have went out there and done exactly what we expected them to do, and that's be the veterans that they were last year. And the Buckeyes had a great defense last year, and they've continued to do that this year. You've added pieces like Caleb Downs. I mean, I'd say that's pretty much an upgrade there. You don't really have to worry about that guy. And then you hear a guy, Arvell Reese, who has stepped up, has the helmet communications as the backup mic, stepped in admirably for Cody Simon. Cody Simon is back absolutely balling. But Arvell Reese making this push as a guy that is going to have to see the field because of the talent that he's shown and his athleticism that he's flashed already is probably my biggest defensive MVP so far through 2 games.
So I'm going to go with Denzel Burke, and I think he is the best player on what so far has been the most impressive unit on the team. Ron, did you know that of all the units on the unit that leads them in tackles for loss is none other than defensive backs? The DBs have more tackles for loss than any other unit.
And I think that speaks to the comfortability of Jim Knowles, just because you see how aggressive those defensive backs are being. And we've seen Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, multiple defensive backs fly off the edge on DB blitzes. And again, that just speaks to Jim Knowles' comfortability in the system, sending the pressure. And he got away from that a little bit last year because we talked about giving up the big play. And that's one of the great things to see out of this defense is they're being more aggressive while also not giving up the big play. We talked about it during the instant reaction. They didn't give up a single first down during the second half of the Western Michigan game. So to see them not only be able to up the intensity and the aggressiveness on defense, but also limit the big plays has been a huge step forward for this defense.
Yeah, and for the sake of me trying to spin that narrative, Ron, I'll have you know I separated defensive tackles and defensive ends as units. just while we're here, and my boys got one of the turnovers, but obviously nothing to take away from Arvell Reese. I think Arvell Reese, I think Arvell Reese is an all Big Ten linebacker. I hope he gets the snaps to prove that he's an all Big Ten linebacker. I feel like plenty other position groups have, we've seen the young guys contribute and really get there to stay. We haven't seen that quite from linebackers, but I really, really think Arvell Reese is an all Big Ten level linebacker. The other side of the football. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I agree 1,000%, and I feel like it's a very similar situation to Jermaine Matthews. You heard Jim Knowles come out and say that we look at Jermaine Matthews as a 1. So if Jermaine goes in to the game, like you saw him have to come in for Denzel Burke, a potential all Big Ten corner, no one bats an eye because they view this guy as just as good as all of the other starters and more than capable of starting, and I feel like we're approaching that place with Arvell Reese.
Other side of football, offense. Who have you been most impressed with?
I mean, you have to know who I'm going to say here. Everybody said I was crazy when I said when this guy signs his national letter of intent, he immediately becomes the best wide receiver in college football. And his cousin, Geno Smith, said, hold my beer, and said he's going to be the best wide receiver ever, Chris. Is the Jeremiah Smith hype getting out of control? We have that as a poll here for the people in the chat because I thought I was going overboard with best player in best wide receiver in college football, and Geno said no. Best wide receiver ever, Chris.
It means something to me. Now, there's got to be some family bias in there, I'm sure, but we're talking about Geno Smith, the guy who happens to be the quarterback for DK Metcalf, who maybe is one of the 5 most physically gifted receivers of all time. If we're just
he actually compared him to DK Metcalf, and we did the graphic last week where we were talking about comparing him to Calvin Johnson and Julio Jones, and you could have thrown DK Metcalf on there. The only reason why I didn't is I think Jeremiah Smith's college career is going to be significantly better than DK had at Ole Miss.
Yeah, and honestly, like there was some talks about was DK Metcalf even the number 1 in his time at Ole Miss, because you know who his teammate was? Other freak, AJ Brown. Yeah, so like for me to sit here and listen to this from Geno Smith, a couple of things. A lot of times your family won't want to put that kind of pressure on you, and I think as an NFL guy, you'd only say that if you genuinely believed it. I think Geno believes it. And honestly, like the way he's played so far, to be 6'3", 215, to clock in at 21.7 miles per hour and score a touchdown on a hitch, something we have not seen, at least run after catch wise, since JSN, Garrett, and Chris. But he's also 3 inches taller than each of those dudes and probably 30 pounds heavier, and doing it as a true freshman. I mean, look, Ohio State is wide receiver U. We know that. And if it's not, then it's LSU, whatever. This kid, as a true freshman, the way Ohio State's recruited, to me, is really wide receiver 1. And the reason I think that is because Ohio State is telling us that he is. Emeka Egbuka is going to break the all-time receiving record in Ohio State history. And yet he's going to do it while playing second fiddle to a freshman. He's a senior.
It's truly insane, the type of generational talent that we're dealing with. And you talked about not wanting to put the pressure on him. Geno has seen great wide receivers. He's been playing quarterback at a high level for years now. So for him to heap that praise on a family member and know that he's own freshman just speaks to the level of talent that we're dealing with here. And again, Emeka about to be the all-time leading receiver, and he might not even be the leading receiver on the team this year. And I doubt he's going to be the leading receiver in targets.
Yeah. DK Metcalf as a freshman did have an impressive stat. I don't know if you know this, Ron, but the best ratio in terms of catches to touchdowns, maybe in Ole Miss history. He caught 2 balls as a freshman at Ole Miss, and he has 2 touchdowns. So that's 100% of the time it was a touchdown. Now, that's all. So he wasn't physically there. DK's college career, he had 1,228 total receiving yards. Jeremiah's going to break that by week 10.
It feels like it. If he doesn't do it by week 10, he's absolutely going to smash that by the end of his freshman season. And again, you talk about the people that we're comparing him to. He already has almost more touchdowns as a true freshman than Julio Jones. He's on pace to have more yards than Calvin Johnson. The sky is the limit with this guy.
I said this in a little article I wrote. I feel this thing when I watch Jeremiah Smith that I've only felt maybe 1 or 2 times before watching an athlete. The other time was young me watching LeBron James in his first stint in Cleveland. And I remember leading up to it, all the talk was, he's the chosen one. There's no way he'll live up to the hype. Until that first week, then everyone's like, oh, no, he's going to absolutely live up to the hype. That's how I feel about Jeremiah Smith currently.
And I feel like we're dealing with a similar phenomenon. People in South Florida have known about Jeremiah Smith since he was 10, 11 years old playing park ball, and watched him go win national championships in OT7 and 7-on-7 for SFE, state championships with Chaminade Madonna. And now hopefully he looks to bring a championship to Columbus for the Buckeyes with this rare talent that we haven't seen in, I couldn't tell you how long.
And also the other side of it, like the maturity beyond his age, right? Like, this is the same age that LeBron was when he got to the Cavs. Obviously, he forgoed college and went straight to the league. We never heard anything about LeBron getting in trouble. We never heard anything other than LeBron wants to work and likes the pressure, because all it is for him is playing a sport that he knows he's good at. It feels the same with Jeremiah. And I hate to do it to the kid, but I just can't help how I currently feel.
Absolutely. And you talk about the work ethic. I mean, you can see the physical development from his junior year of high school to what he looks like now. I know they were talking about this comment on the McAfee show today. And AJ Hawk's like, I'm telling you, you can't even see on the TV copy how big this guy is for a true not even for a true freshman, just in general as a college football player, because you look at Marv, who just left as a junior, and Jeremiah Smith is bigger than him already at 18 years old. So Calvin Johnson talked about coming into Georgia Tech around the same weight that Jeremiah is now and left at almost 240. I don't think the Buckeyes will expect him to put on that much weight, but it's going to be interesting to monitor how much this guy grows, because you saw in week 1, they had him putting his hand in the dirt, and they have him blocking as an inline tight end sometimes. So it's going to be interesting to see how this guy develops, and I feel like the sky's the limit. And even with him being so young at 215, he's a Florida track guy. I mean, he's running the 110-meter hurdles in one of the fastest states in America. So I have no doubts about him being able to maintain that speed as he continues to get bigger and develop.
And think about Calvin Johnson. He left at 240 from Georgia Tech, but he also was 6'5".
Yeah, so he has an inch on Jeremiah, but I mean, clearly that weight that he put on as a freshman didn't impact him. He still goes to the combine and runs a 4.3.
Yeah. Do you think Jeremiah will post that kind of combine numbers, like that 40 time or faster?
It'll be interesting to see how much he needs to spend developing his ability to run the 40. You heard Marvin Harrison Sr. talk about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s prep for the draft this year, and he said, we're going to prep by doing things that involve playing football. I'm not going to go practice track attributes and work on my start for the 40. I'm Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't need to come to the combine and run a 40 for you. And we've already now, in 2 weeks of play, compared this guy to Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson. I don't know if this guy's going to feel a need to even run the 40 at the combine.
Well, that was the crazy thing about Calvin. Like, Calvin didn't train for the 40, but just went and did it as almost like a flex of like God was playing favorites, and yes, I got the update. You know, like that's kind of what it was for Calvin. Then he went and posted a 4.35. We spent a lot of time on Jeremiah, but last question on him real quick. Over under 1.5 trips to New York City for the Heisman Trophy.
I'm gonna go over, because the one thing that we talk about with this Ohio State team is why Will Howard is the perfect quarterback for this team, is that you have a veteran defense where you don't need your quarterback to go out there and win you games. You need a game manager. You need someone that's not going to go out there and lose it for you. And Will Howard is doing that, I think, at a higher clip than people expected. I feel like he's performing. I feel like the Buckeyes only needed a game manager, and Will Howard is currently giving them more than that. But next year, you're going to have a young defense. You're going to have a running back that's going to be a true sophomore, a running back duo in the backfield that are both true sophomores. I think the Buckeyes are going to get back to your C.J. Stroud type of offense, and they're going to push the ball down the field, and I feel like they will chase a Heisman for Jeremiah Smith in his sophomore and junior season, especially because, I mean, in the first broadcast of the season, they're already talking about, does this guy even need to play 2 more years of college football? They're going to need something to keep him entertained, especially if the Buckeyes go out there and achieve every goal that they set out in year 1. If this guy comes in and catches over 1,000 receiving yards, they beat the team up north, they win the Big Ten championship, and then a natty, you got to give him something to play for.
Got to. Jumping ahead a little bit, is there any player on this team you've been surprised by?
Austin Sarabell. I can't keep saying this guy's name enough. Yeah. Austin Sarabell, Tegra Shabola. We heard the questions about the right guard position, and they were rotating Carson Hinzman in week 1. You really see Tegra take a step in week 2 and start mauling people in the run game, which has been a concern for the Buckeyes on offense, and being able to run the ball, as Ryan Day says, when everyone in the stadium knows that we're running the ball, and the Buckeyes did that with success on Saturday. And then Austin Sarabell, a guy we have not seen any of the 2023 offensive linemen make any even remote steps towards the the starting lineup until Austin Serveld pops up last minute due to the Donovan Jackson injury, and he's come in and played admirably. He had a holding call on Saturday, but just the fact that Justin Fry has a single player in the class of 2023 that has shown an ability to play Big Ten football at a Big Ten level, I think is a huge takeaway for the Buckeyes, because coming into this season, there were a lot of question marks around that 2023 offensive line recruiting class. And to have one guy flash and show that he has an ability to play here already, I think settles a lot of Buckeyes' fears as far as what this offensive line is going to look like next year, when even if they do lose all of the guys that you're expected to lose, you're still going to be returning a guy like Tegra Shabola, Carson Hinsman, who we watched start last year, and Austin Serveld that we've watched start through 2 games this season. So I think the Buckeyes' offensive line has been able to calm the fan base's nerves as far as what the line will look like next season with their play this far this year.
I know Ryan Day didn't want to call it a bye week. He wanted to call it an improvement week. Well, what's one thing Ron James from Best Damn Media wants to see improve during this week?
I would like to see them clean up penalties. I feel like that's the mark of an undisciplined team, and I don't think this team is undisciplined. And I feel like that's another step forward that they can take. And if they're able to clean up the penalties, I feel like this team is hitting on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, I agree. College football, real sport of upsets, man. It's the real upset sport. Last week, we did see some MAC teams do some damage. Obviously, Bowling Green giving James Franklin and Penn State a good little scare, and obviously NIU, Northern Illinois. They put the beats on a good Notre Dame, and their head coach reached out to Marcus Freeman saying, I'll help you. I'll help you get ready for the next time, and I'll tell you what we kind of keyed in on, which I found fascinating. And then Oregon also almost slipped up. So, I know it's a bye week. I know that the schedule doesn't get tough until Iowa, Oregon, but it's always nice to be safe for another week. Has there been one thing Big Ten-wise that surprised you a little bit?
Iowa taking a tumble to Iowa State early in the season. That's a team I expected to show up to the Ohio State matchup in Week 5 undefeated. Yeah. And they lose to an in-state rival early. They lose by a field goal. They put up 40 in Week 1 after Brian Ferentz is fired last year as offensive coordinator. They get a new offensive coordinator, put up 40 in Week 1. You think the offensive revolution is finally here for the Iowa Hawkeyes, and then they don't break 20 in Week 2.
Are you gonna mention it? Like, can we have the common denominator talk?
As far as
Kirk Ferentz was suspended Week 1. He got there Week 2. Offense went right back to its stale ways. Look. I'm just saying.
Do you think you can get a better coach though?
Than Kirk Ferentz?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's always better, man. I'll never let that fold me up. I mean, we just watched Syracuse go get a really good coach. I mean, Wisconsin would do the same thing.
You think Fran Brown's going to Iowa?
No. I'm saying there's
no, that's what I'm saying though. I think Fran Brown's choosing Syracuse over Iowa, even though it's a better program. I'd rather live in New York.
We saw this with Wisconsin too. People thought Wisconsin would never upgrade. They were in the similar place as Iowa was. I mean, they were one of 6 schools to win, 90 games in whatever amount of time. And they went and said, we want Luke Fickell.
Joe Moorhead to Iowa. Book it.
Goodness gracious. All right, let's just do it. Well, first of all, I know as a content creator, you talked about you don't mind the early bye week. As an Ohio State football fan, as an Ohio State football person, do you like this early bye week?
No, if I wasn't receiving time off because of the bye week, I would absolutely hate this. It feels like we've waited forever. You know what this feels like? Remember when College Football 25 came out and then the dynasty mode was broken so you couldn't even start the online dynasties? That's what it feels like. We've waited 10 years for this game to come back, and I still can't even play. And we've waited all off season for the Buckeyes to return. You've watched them look like world beaters, and now they're going on the bye. And even as a content creator, it still bothers me, this early bye, because I feel like we're already watching the national perception die down around Ohio State. That was everybody's darling pick during the offseason as far as the national championship favorite. Texas goes out and beats Michigan in Week 2, and now they jump Ohio State in the AP poll immediately. They're going to take another week off. There's going to be a new favorite team in everyone's eyes based on how they play this weekend, and it does stink that it feels like the Buckeyes, because they didn't have a big-time opponent early in Week 1 and 2, and now they're going into the week, the attention is kind of going to slide off of them and go towards the other teams that haven't had bye weeks and that have played ranked opponents so far.
I want to talk about teams that could potentially be a threat to Ohio State, but to do that, we have power rankings, Big Ten power rankings. I don't think we've done power rankings before, Ron. So
I don't think we have.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is my power ranking on the right, yours on the left, right below us.
Absolutely, right under us. We were the same for to start for 1 and 2, so I guess we jump right in. You think Ohio State looks like the best team in the Big Ten, despite USC having the best win so far in the Big Ten? And I also just published a poll for the chat. Who is the biggest threat to Ohio State in the Big Ten?
Yeah, man, I think Ohio State's looked the best. I think, honestly, it hasn't even been close. Offense and defensively, they just look so sharp. They look like the true Death Star team. And I know it's against MAC schools, but we've seen some of these MAC schools give schools like Wisconsin, obviously Notre Dame, and Penn State some issues. But it just looks and feels like full Death Star mode. And Ryan Day, without calling the plays, really gets to focus on making sure this is a well-oiled machine. And they are that. I think neutral site today, I would pick Ohio State by 10 points. I think Miller Moss is a good quarterback, but I expect Will Howard to have a better season this year. And I think USC has a great group of weapons. I think Ohio State's weapons are better. And then defense, it's not even a question. I know that USC did a good job against LSU, but until I see it day in and day out for at least 6 or 7 weeks, I will absolutely stamp Ohio State over USC.
We talked about this in our preseason show, and I thought that this narrative and conversation was going to die as far as Ryan Day versus Lincoln Riley. Who's the better coach?
Yeah,
Lincoln Riley went out and got a defense this offseason and was like, not so fast. And it feels like we're right back to 2021. Who's the better coach, Ryan Day or Lincoln Riley? Well, we're going to be able to settle that because they now play in the same conference, and neither one of them are going to be able to make a trip to the college football playoffs without potentially having to see the other, or this being sorted out in the regular season with common opponents.
Yeah, that's a fact. Number 3, this is where we differ a little bit.
And I think I think we have the same reasons for putting these teams at 3, but I think you might be higher on the other one. I put Penn State at 3 because the biggest reason why I was out on Penn State coming into this year is I had many concerns about Drew Aller, and I did not think that he was going to be able to take this offense, especially one that is this deficient at talent at the wide receiver position, to the next level. And he seems to still have managed to take a step forward. One of the biggest things, we talked about Will Howard's demeanor on the sidelines. That was something else that I was ready to monitor with Penn State, because a lot of the concern around Penn State was, is Drew Aller ready for the moment at Penn State? Is he going to fold or crumble under pressure? And you see him rallying guys on the sideline, taking a step forward in a leadership position, despite having the reins handed over to him so young. And I feel like Drew Aller has taken a step forward. And that's why I have Penn State in at 3 over Nebraska, because I do lean, while I do think Dylan Raiola is a great talent, is going to probably be the better pro prospect, I think right now at the current standpoint in their career, Drew Aller is a better quarterback.
I love Drew. Nobody can get me to say anything bad about Drew Aller. I love Drew, but that defense, to me, giving up whatever they gave up to Bowling Green, I think
almost
that might be
30.
30 to Bowling Green. He might be Swiss cheese a little bit, and I love Drew Aller, but he's not going to line up on the defensive end and go get a sack. My thing about Nebraska is this, Ron. I believe in Matt Rule in the trench. I think that Dylan Raiola is going to progress so quickly because of headsets and because they have the walkthrough room. He's picking up football at an extreme clip. I wanted to see. Now, it's not because they beat Colorado. It's how they beat Colorado. I wanted to see if against the best receivers that any of these teams have seen all year, how Nebraska would look. Because I wanted to see if they could hold up on the outside. Because Nebraska, it's hard if you're Nebraska to really get a gauge of where your offense is and going up against the Colorado defense. But you could definitely see where your defense is going up against a Colorado offense that I think is probably top 15 in the country. Jimmy Horn and Travis Hunter against that secondary, and that secondary was able to score 7 points. And a lot of people think Shador's a first-round talent, first-round quarterback. Nebraska's defense kept all of them in check. And I'm like, oh, I see that, and I know this quarterback's going to get better and better every single week. Right now, because they play defense so well, and I think Colorado's offense is better than Bowling Green's offense, I like Nebraska a little bit more than Penn State, but it's very, very close.
See, I do think that Penn State is still figuring things out on defense. You have Abdul Carter making a position change, going from outside linebacker to a traditional defensive end. You have a new one cornerback in A.J. Harris transferring in from Georgia. And then you do have the veteran safeties back there, and Kevin Winston and Zakee Wheatley and Jalen Reed, those guys rotating back there. I do think that Penn State's defense still has the potential to get better. I do have concerns about the interior of that defense, still not completely sold on their defensive tackles or linebackers. But I do still think that with Drew Allar's progression, maybe they still have a chance of still figuring some things out. At 4, again, we differ here. You're a little bit lower on Oregon than I have Oregon at 4, despite their struggles, despite all of my screaming from the mountaintops that I think Dan Lanning is a fraud. I still think they're better than they're putting on tape at the current moment. And until I see them lose to Ohio State on October 12th, I'm going to have to leave them at 4 currently.
I almost put them at 6. I'm not going to lie.
Behind
Rutgers.
Michigan fans right now.
I'm just saying, got him. I need Oregon to be better, and right now, I just like when I look at those two teams, I think I would like Nebraska, Penn State. I think could be a pick'em game. I would absolutely pick Penn State today against Oregon. Oregon's soft between the tackles, dog. Like I watch Boise State, and usually Boise State, they don't play teams straight up. Usually Idaho, they don't play teams straight up when they're 20-point underdogs. I watched both these teams line up, put the weights in the pocket, Ron, and said, I'm just better than you. Like, I'm better at football than you. And Boise State's offense outscored Oregon's offense. I cannot let that slide. I am big Dan Lanning guy. I'm big on Dan. I'm the one that jumped on his platform and said, Dan is young Urban. Go be young Urban, dude.
And see, I think you jumped the gun on there. As far as crazy takes, I'm saying Jeremiah is the best wide receiver in college football. You're saying Dan Lanning's young Urban.
I'm just saying, like, I said he's young Urban. Look, here's the thing. Dan, I love you. I'm not going to be wrong for you twice, man. And I might be wrong for the first time about calling you young Urban. I'm not going to be wrong because right now Penn State is better than you, and that pains me because I think Franklin's the fraud.
Man, I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. Dan Lanning can't make you wrong, especially with everybody's questions around James Franklin. I have Nebraska at 5. You have Oregon at 5. Still waiting to see more out of Dylan Raiola as a true freshman. I'd like to see how he looks in bigger games, and it's going to be interesting to see if that Nebraska team is still 7-0 when they play the Buckeyes. We only put 5 on the screen. The glaring omission from both of these lists, the reigning national champs and Big Ten for now, unless the NCAA has something to say about it. But neither one of us have the Michigan Wolverines. Are they doomed to return to the shadow realm in college football? Because it seems like their fall from grace is going to be precipitous.
Brother, they stink. And I'm not even going to hold you. Whatever NCAA sanctions come down, it's already over. Like you can literally give them a 5-year playoff ban. It doesn't matter because they would have never made it anyway. Ron, they STINK stink.
I'm sitting over here like writing them down. What is he spelling?
Like LeBron, that stank, don't it? Yeah, it stinks. They stink.
Yeah, I don't have many concerns about Michigan, and that game is going to be interesting because I feel as we get closer to the game, the ghost of seasons past, and we have this in the notes, the ghost of seasons past is the only thing that worries me about this Michigan matchup. And the fact that Ryan Day has delegated play calling duties, I don't even think Ryan Day has the ability to get in the way of the whooping that I think is coming to the Michigan Wolverines the 3rd Saturday in November.
Yeah, I think honestly, if Ryan Day starts to get tight in that game, Chip Kelly will get on the mic and ask one of the interns to go cut the cord to get Ryan Day off the headset from upstairs. I think that's what's going to happen.
Someone take his headset, tell him to go stand next to Brian, and you stop talking to Chip.
just cut the cord, big dog. I'm the captain now. You got me. Like that's what we're about to be on. Ron, I my bad. We spent so long on some topics, but I do want to get one thing out there. Last year, we talked about the magic number that Ohio State's offense needs to score 17 or more because we don't think anybody in the country can score over 17 on this defense. Jim Knowles, the mad scientist, got the dudes, Cody Simon and Jordan Hancock, both big parts of it. This whole defense head to toe, NFL players. Do you still feel like the magic number is 17.5 for the offense, or is it less, or is it more? I
think it's more. Like, I think the Buckeyes, I think it's less. I'm sorry. I think it is less. I don't think the Buckeyes even need to score more than 17. I feel like this line for the Buckeyes to monitor this year is going to go closer to 10 is the number that you're going to look at every week and say, does this team score double digits on the Buckeyes? And we said, if anyone scores over 17, the Buckeyes will likely lose, because we had our fears about the offensive deficiencies with that team last year. And you saw it happen for the first time all year against the team up north, and they ended up losing.
No, I agree. I feel really good about this defense. I think that they are going to really shut things down, and I fully expect this defense. I mean, honestly, I don't know when they'll give up their first touchdown. It may be against Oregon. That's what we're talking about. I mean, again, nobody has made a trip to the red zone.
The disrespect on the maybe it'll happen against Oregon is kind of crazy. I know Iowa fans and Michigan State fans are like, excuse me, I know you guys spent 20 minutes talking about Jeremiah Smith, but we have our own freshman phenom and Nick Marsh, and that'll definitely be a matchup to keep your eye on when the Buckeyes take on Michigan State. And I think that'll probably be the most elite wide receiver that the Buckeyes see before they see Evan Stewart and company with the Oregon Ducks.
No, that'll be a real humbling experience. Welcome to the league, Nick. And I'm on that. Hey, I'm Chris Drew. That's my guy, Ron. Ron, any closing thoughts before we skedaddle on out of here?
No, I mean, go Bucks, and enjoy your bye week, because we got a full slate ahead of us, and we will be back here on Bleacher Report next Wednesday to keep talking about the Buckeyes after week 3.
Wait, you do the thing. Go Bucks and
OH.
IO.
See you guys. I hope you guys have an awesome bye week, and can't wait to see you guys again next Wednesday. Appreciate Bleacher Report for having us.